What's up, folks? Welcome to the guide for what is arguably the most aesthetically pleasing and also the most powerful build I think I've ever made in Path of Exile. It is Frost Bomb Archmage with Woke Cascade, and it looks like this. Or, as YouTube defines that, a lot of bright pixels. It is a ridiculous build that, sorry for my viewers, if increases the price of Woke Cascade, it's for a good reason. This build has been phenomenal in both clear for me as a mapper as well as a lab runner because of massive regen and damage. I can one-shot most memory guardians, two-shot most shaper guardians, and one tick and phase almost all elder guardians, to the point that even Awakener himself, when he comes down at Awakener level 8, I can click on him like 2 or 3 times and he'll phase instantaneously. This build is ridiculously overtuned, and no, I'm not wearing 200x or mirrors worth of gear. I'm wearing about 30 to 40x worth of gear that I've self-crafted for the most part, and it's just ridiculous. I love this build. I'll have a link, or not a link, a clip to a 4-way fight of both the Elder Guardians and the Shaper Guardians at the end of the video if you want to see what it looks like bossing. In terms of mapping, it's basically just run around, open a map. You can't run no regen, and you can't run reflect. You can run reflect if you respec. We'll talk about a lot of respec options along the end of the video. But for the most part, all you're going to have to do is just warp around from screen to screen. Right click ahead of you, things will die, you flame dash to them, click ahead of you once again, things will die, you can flame dash to them. In some maps, if you want to be more defensive, you don't run Righteous Fire. In some maps, if you just want damage and want to go through very, very quickly, you can run Righteous Fire. It's pretty versatile in the way that it works for mapping, and like I said, super defensive. We have a massive amount of regen. I think we regenerate somewhere around 2,500 to 3,000 life a second, and then also with a giant mind over matter pool of 10,000 mana, it's pretty easy to stay alive. So, what does the build consist of and how does it work? The first thing to keep in mind is that Awake Cascade isn't mandatory, but it's a big power boost to the build. So if we're looking at where Cassia is standing right there, if I click right here, then these 3 sets of bombs will all overlap on top of Cassia, and because we are using a Pledge of Hands and a Spell Echo, that means each stack of bombs is actually a stack of 4 bombs. So all 4 of these, or 3 of these stacks are stacks of 4, and each one blows up, hitting Cassia, doing 12 bombs worth of damage. So that's where Awake Cascade comes in, is if you don't have it, right, you would have 1 bomb. If you have normal Cascade, you would have 2 bombs that can overlap, and with Wake Cascade, you can have 3 bombs overlap. So it is a very large part of the damage having that bomb overlap. Other than that, though, we are using a Pledge of Hands with Phantasmal Frost Bomb. Now, I started with a normal Frost Bomb in the beginning of the build, switched to Phantasmal when I got to it. Elemental Penetration, because it's a weird setup, and I'll explain that in a little bit. Less duration, just so the bombs explode quicker. You know, if I take that out and do that, they take a little bit longer, so that's just a feel-good, more damage option. Awake Cascade, as I said, is key to that. Archmage, I'm using Anomalous Archmage, once again, because it's a weird setup for me. That has to do with Elemental Penetration, Anomalous Archmage, and Spell Echo. Now, the reason I'm saying it's a weird setup, and I'll explain this now instead of having to say that over and over again, is I'm actually both Shaper of Winter and Shaper of Storms. And with this node here, Snowstorm, so I gain 10% of my lightning damage as extra cold damage, and this Frostwalker node, and then grabbing that instead of that, I am almost perfectly 50% cold, 50% lightning. Now what that means is that I can activate, depending on the damage range of my bombs, both the increased chill and the increased shock. So both of these two, or effect of lightning elements, both of these will alternate depending on which bomb decides to trigger at what interval. So that's the reason I'm in a weird setup where I'm 50% of both. If you don't want to do the weird 50-50 and don't want to bother with Elemental Penetration and Anomalous Archmage, just go normal Archmage and run Lightning Pen. You'll do more damage than me, but you'll lose the defensive side of Shaper of Winter. Now, the rest of the gym links, we're of course using increased duration on an Arcane Cloak. That way when we do plop Arcane Cloak, we get a long, very thick 6200, 6300 almost shield, along with Arcane Surge and Righteous Fire. Righteous Fire we can run full time because we have the sweet agnostic node on the tree, so we are Righteous Firing full time, and we have a Life Flask that turns that off in case we need our healing back. Then we also have a Wave of Conviction, a Sigil of Power, increased duration, and increased area effect. This means we have a arena-sized Sigil of Power that we can power up by just being in it. This is great for Maven fights, Guardian fights, whatever have you, because it gives you a lot of maneuverability around, so you pop this at the beginning of the fight, and the fight will be over before this thing's duration ends. The other thing that comes with that is that increased size Wave of Conviction. The Wave of Conviction is so that we can get our lightning exposure, and Frost Bomb will deal our cold exposure. You could use Hydrosphere for the same reason and just put it down and it will just pulse and do both exposures as well, but I went with a Wave of Conviction on my right click because there is some downtime between casts, so you might as well be using that time for something. We use a level 20 Clarity. A 21 would be great as well because we have need for as much mana regen as possible, along with faster casting, Flame Dash, and just a level 1 Second Wind to make it so we don't have to get any decks on our gear. Now, as far as tree-wise goes, in terms of what we have in here, we got a Thread of Hope for grabbing a couple of these, and we have a Watcher's Eye for Clarity, Mana Recovery. Clarity Mana Recovery is absolutely amazing for this build. I have a double with Zealotry as well. This one cost me about 8 Exalt when I first bought it, and I've seen a couple up now since I bought mine for about 5 Exalt, and some people have listed them for a little bit more, but I think you can wait around. You don't need the Zealotry one, it's not mandatory, but you do want the Clarity Mana Recovery. That is absolutely insane for this build because it allows you to just keep Righteous Fire on at all times. The other thing that we have as well, Zealotry, is in the Essence Worm that I'm currently wearing because we are wanting to have as big a mana pool as possible. Clarity doesn't really matter. It takes off only a little fraction up there. I do have a Megalomaniac in this build, gear-wise related, just for that Snowstorm. Basically, if you can grab Snowstorm on anything, it's good enough. I have a Snowstorm with a Clarity of Purpose, so for mana regen, and a non-flammable, which makes it a little easier to run Righteous Fire, so that's just kind of why I have that in the build. We are wearing a Pledge of Hands. Just, you know, get yourself a pledge, get it 6 linked. That's what I did. I just bought one and 6 linked it myself. They're about 4 or 5x, I think, linked. They might be cheaper now, depending on how it's been. It's been about a week since I got mine. Combs Replica Combs chest piece for maximum mana. This is about 2,500 of my mana is just this Replica Combs. We'll talk about other chest options like Cloak of Defiance at the end when I tell you some different ways to build this if you want to be a little bit sneaky with things. As far as helmet goes, Frost Bomb cooldown recovery is a must. I bought this for about 10C and then spammed it with Lucents. All of my gear has been self-spammed with Lucent Fossils. I have not bought any of my gear. The only one that I got from Harvest Crafting is this one. This one was what originally started the build, which is life, mana, 1 resist, and an elemental weakness. So I just caster spammed. It's a very strong way to get good, high quality rings, is just caster spam them. You'll get many of the curses on them, and if you get lucky, you can get a really big one. So I caster spam this when I believe I might have even Aug fired it to get the resist on there. So just kind of one of those things where, you know, you just start crafting, wear something basic, and then upgrade as you can. Same thing with my gloves. This is just very basic life, mana, and some resistances. Actually, no, I take that back. These I bought for 10C. So these are the one item that I did buy on the build. And then Lucent spamming my belt. As you can see, 20 life, that mana recovery, cooldown recovery, and a resist. The way I made this belt was I spammed Lucents until I got mana recovery and cooldown recovery. It took me way more than it was supposed to. It should be possible within like 50 Lucents. I think it took me 150, if not 200 Lucents to get this belt, just for those suffixes. And then I did reroll, keeping suffixes multiple times until I landed something that I could use with mana on it. And I got tier 1 mana, which is pretty cool. Then I Aug life and got tier 9 life. So that was kind of awful. In there is just a mana with some resistances, because I am kind of skinny on my resistances for some reason on this build. I just needed some resist, so I put it in the jewel. The same with the boots. I started with a cooldown recovery mod on it by alteration spamming it. Once I got that, I regaled it, got the max life, and no, I got the chaos resist, and then I auged max life. Yes, and then I crafted movement speed. So pretty basic. The Fizz Lightning doesn't really do anything for my build. It's just those 4 lines. Realistically, those 3 lines, life, cooldown recovery, and movement speed, are all you really care about on those boots. You could, and what I was hoping to get is +2 to maximum fire resist instead of the lightning there. So I might do lightning to lightning and try to get that off of there and then aug fire onto it if I get around to it. But for now, I don't really need to. The build is absolutely destroying everything. In terms of the amulet, we do have the Adziri's Foible. This thing is insane. Mana recovery, mana regen, and then Crusader is the Anoint. If you don't want to spend the couple X on some gold oils, you could do this as a Hierophant, and I'll explain that a little bit later on. So if you want to do a little bit cheaper version of it, it's a possibility. So that's just going to be your best in slot. Yes, it sucks to do a mana catalyst on this because it is fertiles, and fertiles are expensive. But it's a lot if you can get a high tier one, you get a lot of percent, you get a lot of flat mana, and then also get that mana regen. It's kind of worth it if you're going long haul with this build like I did. Otherwise, the gear is pretty basic. We got our flask, we got, just the way to turn off burning. This just helps with mana recovery as much as we can, reduces bleed. I run Ruby myself. You could run Basalt, you could run Armor Flask, you could run whatever you want to do as another flask. I just run it so that I can run Righteous Fire full time, just to give myself a little bit of breathing space on that, so I have a faster regen. And then we run an Ensemble Flask to keep our speed up. You could also switch this to something. It's pretty versatile in that sense. And of course, a Quicksilver. As far as the passive tree goes, it's pretty much what you'd expect from an Archmage build. You grab as much mana. I grabbed area, just so I can get those overlaps to be a little bit better. So I grab a bunch of the area stuff, a bunch of the mana stuff, grab some life, all resist, percent mana as well there. Life and mana, I still can grab some stuff here, grab all these. Basic Archmage tree, life and mana are key. I do run a Thread of Hope here, just so I can grab this to counterbalance the Thread of Hope. Grab these 2 for Reduction, this one for some life, and that for some more cast speed and movement speed. Just kind of a nice little spot for that. I didn't really know what else to use my points in, so that's what I put it in. And as far as the ascendancy goes, I do use Shaper of Winter and Shaper of Storms, like I said. Those are alternating because of how my damage is kind of exactly in the middle. And then I am Mastermind of Discord. That means that my Frost Bomb is minus 50 exposure, and my Wave of Conviction is also minus 50 exposure. So it's just really, really strong. And of course, that mana regen is pretty good. 1%, every time you inflict exposure, not gonna hurt you. And also, Heart of Destruction is very nice because that is what's giving us this giant AoE. And in the beginning, when you start fights, it's cool because you can get all these things set up and really, really large. And then once you're in the fight, you don't mind if it shrinks down a little bit because you have enough, AoE scaling that you can still get those triple stacks on pretty easily. So it's just a nice little flow to the build to have Heart of Destruction. As far as what I would maybe change if I wanted to do this in different ways, if we look at the path building for my current setup, then you'll see that I'm doing about 1 mil per bomb currently. So that's 12 times 1 million. So I'm doing about 12 million per hit, and that's not anything crazy ticked. We are on Awakener. They are on Consecrated Ground. We have Zealotry going. They are shocked for 15, which is coming from Shaper of Storms, and they are chilled because I chill with the Frost Bombs. We are also casting recently with Convergence active, so we do have that reduced area, but it's 42 to 47. It's not that bad of an area loss. You're still going to be able to get those stacks. And we've cast once recently, so we've used about 32 or 3600 mana, depending on what you want to say. It doesn't change. That's all possible. And of course, we could be on a conk ground for that regen. Now, as you can tell, even with the regen being affected by agnostic currently, we are regenning a nice 2300 life a second. If we pop that off, we regenerate 3400 mana a second. So it's really, really quick regen recovery in that sense. And that's what would allow us to then also run Righteous Fire and Val Righteous Fire. And so this is my damage typically mapping. If I'm going for a boss and I want to kill something very quickly, I'll drop down the Sigil of Power from there, hit them with a Wave of Conviction, charge up the Sigil before the boss fight, so it's at a 4 stack, and then right before I attack, pop Val Righteous Fire and Righteous Fire. It will go up to a nice 1.8 million per explosion times 12. Well, that's a lot of damage, and that's why I'm able to one-shot most things pretty much without a care in the world. And that's what really makes the build as powerful it is we have massive regen, massive screen wides clear, and we do absolutely chunk enemies. You know, the satisfaction of being able to walk up to a Memory Guardian or a Minotaur and just click on them once or twice and they just fall over is just so good. The first click will usually trigger Elemental Overload, no problem, and the second one will be just that maxed out Elemental Overload with this Heart of Destruction active, so you get that 30% more on that first hit, and it's just gonna truck anything that it decides to be in its way, and it's amazing feeling. This build is just beautiful. The variants of it that I've kind of discussed on stream and tried to maybe think about for other people that wanted to do it, that don't want to go the Combs route and being more defensive, you could drop Heart of Destruction, and you could drop either Storms or Winter, depending on how you're doing. Drop one of them, drop the other one, and then go the Golem nodes here, and maybe then path up here and grab these instead of grabbing something like maybe the AoE or some of these nodes down here. It's a little bit of change, you know, whatever you want to do with it. This could let you run Cloak of Defiance, put your golems in the Cloak of Defiance itself, then have them all spawned and being defensive for you, giving you those damage buffs, defensive buffs. This could probably be another way of doing the build that would be very, very good and very, very heavily defensive. I play soft core. I don't really care about dying, so every now and then I will be one-shot by something, even though I have 4,200 life and Mind Over Matter. It's still enough to sometimes just get ticked if I'm doing a map that's like crazy thick with extra damage as something, or crits and haste and power charges, whatever have you. You can get ticked by something and still flop over. But I think if you went Cloak of Defiance, switched over to Golems, you'd be in a really, really good spot. The other thing you could do if you want to do a more budget version is you could easily go over here and become a Hierophant. So grab Divine Guidance, Conviction of Power, Arcane Blessing, and Illuminated Devotion. I would not go for Sanctuary of Thought myself because you are running Agnostic, so this node is like basically mostly just a bad thing for you. So grab the power charges, grab the endurance charges. That'll make you thicker. It'll make it so you don't have to anoint yourself a Crusader because you get Transfiguration of Mind already baked into the tree. You can get the endurance charges for thickness and then a longer lasting Arcane Surge that will give you just way more power as well from there, as well as another 10% damage taken of life to Mind Over Matter. So if you went this node, you'd easily have massive amounts of defense, and if you went Cloak of Defiance on top of that, you'd have like, what is that? Just an absolutely ridiculous Mind Over Matter. So you could go that route if you want it to be really, really defensive. And honestly, with how much damage I do, that might be the play in a lot of ways. My damage is so ridiculously high that I don't need it. I don't need it to be that high. So maybe giving it the defensive treatment would be best. But I just like melting stuff. Melting stuff is pretty fun. So for me, this build has been just an absolute blast to play. I think visually it is one of the most stunning builds I've ever done, where you can see my face light up when I attack with this. See? Normal lighting. Look at that. That's just beautiful. That's just pristine beauty. And yes, your FPS will tank like an absolute truck every single time you attack, because for some reason that's just what it does. But you know what? Sometimes it doesn't. You don't need to see. You don't need to see. When you do this much damage, you don't need to see the boss fight. You don't need to see the mechanics. It's fine. I've done Maven. I've done Uber 5-way. I've done Awakener. I've done basically everything on this that I can think of in the game as far as bosses are concerned, and it's absolutely destroyed everything. I haven't done a Deathless Maven yet because I keep messing up on the final phase with the laser beams, and I keep ticking them and then not being able to see where I'm supposed to go Simon Saysing, and it's a whole mess. But I'm still going to keep playing this for at least today more, because I do want to get some Maven Orbs, some Awakener Orbs. But overall, it has been just a blast to play, and I would highly recommend anyone who is looking for a little bit of versatility, a little bit of difference in their playstyle to try this build out. If you can get your hands on a Woken Cascade, I would highly recommend doing so. It is the most expensive part of the build, and then the rest of it you can kind of start doing whatever you want. Personally, for me, when I was first leveling the character up, I had this dex node, and I had I think I had some dex gear as well, and I was using Second Wind instead of Elemental Penetration, and I did not have the Phantasmal Frost Bomb. I had a normal Frost Bomb, and because of having some dex, having that in there, I was able to do this with normal Cascade and just kind of spamming them more often. That worked out like a treat. So you can definitely get started with a normal Cascade rather than a Awakened Cascade, get it ramped up, and then start saving up in the process. My belt, my boots, I made those when I was 91. I had already done a Maven one time before that, so you can do Maven without these boots, without the belts. Your cooldown recovery will suffer for it a little bit, but because of the amount of damage you do, it's not really that big of a deal. You'll just attack a little bit less often than I can spam. Right now, with my 1.37, I think you'll be at 1.96. And if you really want to just still keep up doing more in maps, you don't like the delay, then keep Second Wind in the build, get some dex, and try to figure out how to kind of balance around that, and you'll be just fine. So honestly, this is a build I would recommend anyone checking out that is looking for something a little bit spicier, a little bit different, and just wants to melt bosses, just wants to get in there and just beautifully melt bosses like they are absolutely just made of cheese. Fondue the bosses. Fondue the bosses. That's all I gotta say. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, do ask them in the comment section below. The path to building should be in the little doobly-doo down there. And of course, you can check out the Twitch stream at DireGray and ask questions there. That'll all be linked below. Thank you so much for watching. I will be grinding Awakened Orbs. Peace.
Struggle or strangle. Be healed and fight on. Another challenger. Time bends to my will. Handle this. Twin terrors. And fight on. Such wildly delightful desperation. Grip of the infinite. Shadow, rise and fight. Another challenger. Temporal tears. Healed and fight on. Time to up the stakes. Tight tethers. Time bends to my will. Such wildly delightful inspiration.
Not bad.